according to, and I'm delighted to be joined today, Connor Tomlinson, political commentator with Young Voices UK. Connor, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Good evening, Jeremy. Very nice to be back. And even though we're just about 10 days, may I say, risk of being early, Merry Christmas.
And you haven't got a Christmas jumper on, have you, Connor?
I have. I decided to give Peter Carboy a bit of a run for his money. It's horrifically ugly. So it's very suitable.
Peter Carboy had ho, 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 which is maybe interesting. Listen, I'm sure that most people have talked incessantly about the same things, but it matters so much to us all. It's our lives that seem to be, I don't know, not disappearing, but COVID restrictions, Boris Johnson being, I don't know, decimated by his own party, lateral flow test shortages, hospitality income losses, potential lockdowns, circuit breakers. It's supposed to be Christmas, Connor. I don't feel like it, does it?
There's enough things going wrong that we could do a brand new cover of Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire" at this point.
Yeah.
I would like to add to a lot of the people that were texting in earlier about Siobhan, the MP. She did get quite a few of her stats wrong in that she didn't represent the whole picture because, yes, of course, London has a lower vaccination rate, and so that means more people who are unvaccinated will be in the ICU. But if you look at the government's recent statistics released by the ONS for week 50, the majority of cases, hospitalizations and deaths are from people that are vaccinated, and it's because mainly, not that the vaccine doesn't work, but it's because if you're old and fat, that's more likely to be a risk of COVID than your vaccination status.
And
so
therein answers something.
Lives.
Therein is the thing that I keep saying. I have great sympathy for anybody who's lost anybody to COVID, but I would love somebody to be able to tell me how many of the 125,000 people that have tragically died from COVID have died with underlying health issues. I absolutely am convinced that's going to be a much larger figure than people believe. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Well, they've knocked about 25% off last year, didn't they, arbitrarily from the death statistics? They said, oh, we counted them wrong. And today, the gentleman who died with OMICRON, they were on a rival station. With doing a lot of work there. Exactly. But they were on a rival station. His stepson was saying, oh, he was very healthy. Well, he was 70 and he never left the house. I don't think, particularly if you're housebound, that's an indicator of great health. Allow me to call skepticism. Obviously, a tragedy, he died with OMICRON, but that's not the reason to sound the alarm bells and then take away all of our liberties again.
Do you believe there are rumours, Connor, abounding here, certainly around Parliament, radio and television network stations? There are rumours that there will be further restrictions. Now, 100 Tory MPs, went for Boris over this. It was only because of Keir, I want to look like a leader Starmer, that it got through. Do you believe that the chance of a circuit breaker is likely or not? What are you hearing? What are you thinking?
Well, I've heard the rumours that something's going to be happening on January 5th. I think there's very much the appetite in Whitehall and among Sage. As we know, there is a zero COVID committee among Sage, which is a futile endeavour, given it will always mutate. And also there are authoritarians on Sage, like Susan Michie, who's a lifelong communist, which means state control over every aspect of your life. So I think there's the will there from the scientific advisors, none of which are impartial. I think Boris is currently clenching his teeth, and he's got on one flank, he's a new dad. So when he did that booster jab thing on the Sunday, it's no wonder that his eyes were so baggy and tired. That also might be the weight of his conscience there, considering his MPs are so rebelling. As you said with Keir Starmer, it's astounding that Labour are voting for this because it seems like a political own goal. Because at the same time, they obviously want to set the precedent for when they're in power to use ID cards.
Yeah, but think about that. Think about that for just a second. That's a difficult one for Keir to steer, excuse the pun, because in a way, right, you're absolutely right. Boris Johnson on his arse, to be absolutely honest, and Starmer quite literally could have said no, and there would have been a vote of no confidence and Boris Johnson would have been in trouble. But Keir Starmer is not going to win a popularity contest. Whatever people think, when it comes to an election, Boris Johnson will turn it on or the Tories will get rid of him and bring somebody else in. So Keir Starmer made what some are saying is a brilliant political decision. I'm not sure whether it's brilliant, but it was pretty obvious to me. He doesn't need to say or do anything. He needs to put, what was it he said? Patriotic duty. I've never heard the Labour Party talk about a patriotic duty, but all of a sudden they're being the ones that are talking about the right things and we're going to support and it's about the country, etc., etc. They've gone from minus 10 points to plus 8 by saying absolutely nothing. That says, to me, that explains the enormity of the cock-ups that Boris Johnson keeps making.
Well, I have heard Keir Starmer talk about patriotic duty once, and that was when there was the internal memos leaked about having more flags in his background. We can check that one off the last time he did a press release. And also he said that vaccine passports were un-British. So he was making an appeal to the British liberalist tradition when he said vaccine passports were wrong. Yep. And then now he's turning around and voting for them. But I take your point, and I will agree with you in that he's doing the old Sun Tzu tactic of never interrupt an enemy when he's making a mistake. And if he wants to let Boris continually step on rakes and then hopefully get his way to be Prime Minister by default, that may actually be an unfortunately winning strategy.
Connor, do you believe that Boris, genuine question, and I want to move on quickly in a minute, but do you believe that Boris is done, or do you think that he can recover from this?
I don't think he can recover from it. I think he's coasting on fumes, but he was very clever in his dead cat strategy, rather. I believe one of the other shows, I called him the Tiger King of dead cats, because he seems to have actually deflected pretty well from all the party stories, even though they keep trickling out. Now everyone, including us, all we're talking about is new restrictions and the Omicron booster. So he's not being hauled out by his ear with votes of no confidence, when even though he's continually broken his rules, and now it turns out they had one party in May, as early as May 2020, when the first lockdown was in place. But it should be killing his political career, but it isn't.
News today that France bans non-essential travel from Britain. The UK travel advice warns France is a nation racked by violent demonstrations. This is interesting. I don't really want to go to France because I don't like Macron or French people. To be fair, that's just my opinion. But what do you say to this?
Well, I don't think the French people like Macron very much, as is true. They've been racked by demonstrations from the Gilets jaunes from 2018 against the fuel taxes. That's come through now from the pension reforms. It's very interesting, though, that Britain didn't levy these against France when the terror threat was much higher. For example, when you saw those arsons against churches that then culminated in the very mysterious Notre Dame fire. It's strange that it seems to be a bit more retaliatory, because obviously we've seen a lot of tensions ramping up with France threatening to cut off power to the Channel Islands, with AUKUS getting quite the ruckus over in the continent, with France losing out on that nuclear submarine deal. I think this is more a sort of spat fight between Macron and Boris, particularly with the Channel migration situation, because Macron's looking quite weak.
I don't think that's going to go away. The Conservative Party this week as well, Connor, they formally recognised the Wuhan Virology Institute as the likely origin of COVID-19. That's a bit of a change in oratory, isn't it?
Yeah, let's tick this another one off for the, unfortunately, for the so-called conspiracy theorists, that they got this one right. I mean, who guessed in terms of where the virus came from? It was actually a simpler solution to say, rather than a bat was made into soup and everyone coughed on each other, it might have come from, the lab that was researching the thing down the street. It seems interesting, actually, to see what comes out of this, because internal emails between Peter Daszak, who is the head of EcoHealth Alliance, who sought the funding for the Wuhan Virology Institute, was actually linked to Dr. Anthony Fauci out in the States. And he testified to Congress that he had no knowledge of gain-of-function research. So it'll be very interesting to see if anything happens with the congressional committees investigating this, both in the UK Parliament and over in the US Senate, whether or not people start actually getting raked over the coals for potentially covering this up.
Where do you think, as we head towards Christmas, an uncertain Christmas for many, where do you think we'll be in 12 months' time, Connor?
I think we're sort of trapped in the same cycle, particularly considering Chris Whitty turned around and said, we're not going to be rid of this till 2023. So much for 15 million jabs for freedom. It seems that meant per person.
Is that not the problem? I've been saying this for days. Wasn't the message wrong a year ago, with respect? Wasn't it? Wouldn't it have been fairer to have said, look, we found some jabs that will deal with this variant right now, but this will mutate. And like flu, and I've said it all day, you will need a different, redefined jab in 6 months or a year. That's what's going to happen. We're going to have to learn to live with this thing. But it strikes me that people were led to believe that it would all have been sorted and all would have been perfect. And it was never going to be like that. I think it's going to be very interesting to see whether Boris follows the scientist completely now, or is incapable of doing so because of his own party. I think it's also going to be very interesting to see where Omicron ends up, because yes, it's far more transmissible than Delta, but it is not alleged. It's 29% less harmful as a disease. And I get the feeling, and I keep saying it, that people are, not just economically, mental health wise, socially, psychologically, whatever, they're done. I'm not even, but I mean, we were here all week and people were saying, we're not going to do what the government says. London's deserted. London is deserted. So are people listening to Boris Johnson or Chris Whitty? I mean, what a combination that is.
I think we're left scratching our heads at the sanity of all because we're trying to apply logic to complete unreason. I think unfortunately, COVID, as we've seen with South Africa, they're saying, well, why is everybody overreacting? We've had a month of data and it's a lot more mild. But I think unfortunately, COVID's a very convenient political excuse, as Boris has shown, to deflect from the failings within your own party.
I think it
may
might
be very profitable for the companies.
I think it might be an easy thing to deflect. I would like to say, I hope they're not making this lot up, or they might exaggerate it, but I still think that we need to understand there is a pandemic going on, but it's a different strain. Has it killed anybody yet? No. Somebody died with it. I mean, I think that's massively important. Whitty said yesterday, oh, they're all going to be in hospital. Are there many people in hospital yet? Apparently, this is a good one, isn't it? The Deputy Prime Minister managed to get the figure wrong from 250 to 9. I don't know how you managed to do that unless you're really bad at maths.
I actually think I might know what that is because I've read somewhere today, I can't remember the paper, but it was 250 was meant to be the threshold that they said in the meeting where they would say it was too many hospitalizations per capita. So he might have had that one on the brain and just blurted it out.
He's not a really good example of somebody who actually made, I mean, for me, the fact he's Deputy Prime Minister is quite frightening. So what are you going to do for Christmas? Got anything planned? Well, you can't see any of your family or friends.
Well,
can't go anywhere.
Oh, no, definitely not. I definitely obviously can't mix indoors, etc. And I wouldn't advise anyone else to break the restrictions. No, I've currently got a little getaway planned with me and my missus a couple of days before, but we're gritting our teeth and hoping Boris doesn't shut down the pubs less than 2 days before I can actually cancel the hotel and get my money back.
If you do go out, don't go in that jumper. Connor, have a fantastic Christmas. Love to the family. We'll see you in the new year. Thank you for coming on Talk Drive.